European Union ministers agreed today to prioritise negotiations with the United States to avoid the tariffs threat, which the EU trade chief said would wreck transatlantic trade. US President Donald Trump said on Saturday he would impose 30% tariffs on most EU imports from the 1st of August, though diplomats say there is still time to hammer out an agreement to prevent this. Now, this tariff rate would make it almost impossible to continue trading as before, with enormous consequences for supply chains and negative impacts on both sides of the Atlantic. We're now joined by international relations analyst Dr. Charles Sinkala to weigh in on the story. Dr. Sinkala, thank you so much for your time. So how will this latest threat by US President Donald Trump of imposing 30% tariffs on most EU imports from the 1st of August, as we understand it, affect trade between the US and EU markets? I mean, as we were saying in that intro, there are fears that this could be devastating for the markets.
Yes, indeed, and thank you very much for having me. It is an irresponsible position of President Donald Trump, to unilaterally decide what tariffs has to be increased, especially from the EU region that has been predominantly been dealing with the United States of America for quite some time. I think it's such a time in the world that nations such as the United States of America should integrate their national policies with their foreign policies, as increasing tariffs by 30%, which is an absurd percentage, from what it is at the moment. It will have a ripple impact in terms of other business dealings that the EU and the United States are facing, not only the two countries or two parts of the world, but also will have an impact on the rest of the African continent and the world.
There's an understanding that the EU trade chief is expected to meet with Donald Trump sometime today. Is there room, do you think, to continue to negotiate with the Trump administration at this point?
The only position will be the diplomatic channels, that multilateral, bilateral relations with the United States, especially the EU Commission, to sit with the government and the Congress of the United States of America and to find a solution. I think there's about another 15 odd days, from today, before the tariffs are implemented. I think they can reverse that because they will present a position that this will have a very bad impact economically, and as well as the cost of importing goods from the EU nations.
I mean, we've heard how President Donald Trump is one that is very transactional. What would make him understand just the complexities around this matter?
I think it will take beyond the Congress or his lieutenants, to draw pictures for him that increasing tariffs by 30%, which has never happened in the history of the United States of America, as it has dealt with the EU nations, will have a gross impact, not only between Europe and the United States, but Africa will have a beating as well towards that. And I think Donald Trump will be convinced, like what we saw the trade was between the United States of America and China, where United States under Donald Trump government, they indicated that they shall ban the cell phones. So is the China as well. They decided that they'll ban the iPhone from there, and it was reversed within short period of time. And I think is unaware of the impact of such a decision that he has taken.
And I want to look at that wide scale effect in terms of this particular matter between the EU and the US. How will that affect South Africa specifically, just given the sense that South Africa too is not immune or protected around these tariffs?
Correct. There will be a devastating impact as some products go via United States of America or vice versa, to land into the African continent, especially in South Africa, as the cost of doing business will now escalate by that 30%, which has been increased, as no business person or no business entity will assume or assimilate that 30% without having a devastating impact. And usually business communities, they would like to pass on the cost of trade, which will be the impact on the consumers wherever they are in the world.
And I mean, South Africa is also bracing to see just what the impact, the real impact on the ground will be. But it also comes at a time where, South Africa has the G20 presidency. What should South Africa at this point in time be thinking of, particularly as it continues, as it says, to engage with the Trump administration?
I think already the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Leonard Ramola, I've heard that he's engaging the United States Embassy and many other countries to canvass in terms of that the decision by President Trump should be reversed because of the ripple effect it shall affect other nations in terms of their GDP and productivity. They are not thinking at the moment, they are actually actioning to prevent such a scourge.
Absolutely. Dr. Sinkala, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Dr. Charles Sinkala, International Relations Analyst there, just weighing in on this tariffs war.